And welcome back to SWBA Today. And in today's episode, we're going to be looking at the SWBA scoreboard. We're going to be recapping the games that took place yesterday and the key storylines to come out of those games. We're also going to be looking at the SWBA standings as we had some teams that secured their seeds here for this upcoming playoffs. And then lastly, we're going to be looking at the SWBA team that nobody wants to see in the Western Conference. And so let's go ahead. Let's jump into the scoreboard. We got a couple graphics for that because everybody was in action here yesterday. And so let's go ahead and let's start with the first game, and that is the Orlando Magic taking care of the Indiana Pacers 129-115. And so, look, you had two teams that really were resting some players, but I always love the fact that you get a chance to see some of these younger players get a chance to play. And so starting with the Orlando Magic, look, they've been hot as of late, and I think that this is a good win to keep trending forward. And I like the fact that Tristan da Silva got a chance to play. I think he's a very underrated rookie out of this last SWBA draft class. And so he had 14 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. And I love the fact that Anthony Black got an extended run here with the Orlando Magic. I really think that he's a player that if you don't know him, I think that he's got some real star power, a player that played for Arkansas and just a huge point guard that can go back and forth between the 1 and the 2. He had 21 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds in 31 minutes. So he had a very strong game. And with the Pacers, look, they got a chance to play some of their younger players as well. You know, some of these players I think are going to play huge roles in the playoffs. And so starting with Jarius Walker, like I think that he's going to be really dependent upon a lot for the Pacers going into this playoff series. He had 15 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists in 34 minutes, was a lottery pick out of the University of Houston. And then Thomas Bryant, look, I know he's not a younger guy, but I think that he's going to definitely see some more minutes as the playoffs approach because I think the Pacers are going to need the added size out there. And Benedict Mathurin, look, he is a bucket when he's out there and he's focused. He had 20 points in this one, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. And so the Pacers lose this game. We're going to be talking about the significance of that and where they're going to be now in the playoff race as they did secure a seed here in a moment. So next up, we'll be talking about the Milwaukee Bucks and the Detroit Pistons. And so the Milwaukee Bucks visiting the Pistons, and they win this 125-119. And once again, we see some teams that do secure their playoff spots, but I think just from an individual standpoint, this was Giannis, and I think this was his, 11th triple-double, if I'm not mistaken, of the season. And so 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 15 assists on the day. So I think that he played very well. And then he also got some good contributions from some others, like Kevin Porter Jr. I think that he's been terrific since he's been moved over there. He had 16, 7, and 4. Bobby Portis Jr., he's been on a tear since he's been back, 17 and 10. And with the Pistons, look, Cade Cunningham continues to play well. He's just on another level right now. He had 36 points in 36 minutes, 12 assists, 6 rebounds. This game, it was right there for the taking, but unfortunately, they just couldn't get it out. But I still think that they're in a good situation here. So we'll talk about them in a moment when we jump into the standings. And so next up, we got the Atlanta Hawks versus the 76ers. And so you guys are going to hear me say this a lot about these teams that just really are looking forward to the SWBA draft coming up. And the Sixers, they're one of those teams. I mean, I think that that's the bottom line here. With the Atlanta Hawks, I've been very impressed with Trae Young, his ability to really set the table for the Hawks. He's up there in the top of assists right now for the SWBA. He had 11 in this game, and he also had 36 points in 36 minutes. And so this guy was on fire yesterday. Zachary Rizichet, 12 points, 3 rebounds. Wanted to see how he would follow up his 38-point effort, I think, against the Brooklyn Nets there. And like I said, with the Sixers, it's all about this upcoming draft here and just hoping that they get a good position and maybe they can get their franchise going in the right direction. And so next up, the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the New York Knicks. And so to me, I think that, man, this was maybe the most maybe disappointing loss of the night, I think, because the Knicks, they were up. And I think that this is the biggest blown lead that they've had, I think, since 2022, if I'm not mistaken there. And so in the fourth quarter, look, the Cavs, they had a 30-16 quarter against the Knicks. You just cannot finish like that. And I think that it's a tough loss because there was no Donovan Mitchell out there. They did have Darius Garland. They did have Max Strus. They did have Jared Allen. Evan Mobley played as well. And I think that Darius Garland probably was the story of the game. He had 26 points and 13 assists in 33 minutes. And I just think when you look on the other side of the ball with the Knicks, it was a great scoring game, I think, for Jalen Brunson in the sense that he got 27 points, but they totally took away him as a playmaker. He only had 2 assists. And so that is concerning, I think, with the Knicks there. And then you do like the fact that Mikal Bridges, I think he's really figured it out since the trade has happened. I'd say that this was pretty much of a lukewarm game for OG Anunoby. I think that, we've seen games where he's been a lot better there. He only had 15 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. I certainly don't expect for the Knicks to have that type of game out of their main stars, but still, this is a game that they had. They had to win it. And so we'll be talking about how they've really struggled against the top teams in the Eastern Conference. And so next up, we're going to be talking now about the Miami Heat versus the Pelicans here. And so look, the Heat just put a whooping on the Pelicans, 153 to 104 in this one. And I think that, look, the key takeaway out of this is that the Heat, they did play all of their main players. You had Andrew Wiggins, you had Bam played, Khalil Ware, Alex Burke, Tyler Hero, just everybody that's normally in the rotation played here. With the Pelicans, look, they are in a situation where they are just hit with injuries. Jose Alvarado, I think he's the only player that I know that played significant minutes that is in their major rotation. But the Pelicans, much like the Sixers, look, they are looking forward to the SWBA draft. And I think that maybe much like the Sixers, they have to answer some questions about their main star, especially their bigs, because they have Zion to ask a question about. The Sixers have to start to wonder about Embiid and how that direction is going to go. So next up, you got the Hornets versus the Celtics here. And so Celtics take care of business 130 to 94. Kind of repeat myself here. The Hornets, again, this is a team that's trending towards what's going to happen with the SWBA draft. The Celtics, I think that this was good to see with Jason Tatum getting out there with the guys that are going to play some major minutes. Al Horford had to step in as well. He had 13 and 11. Tatum had 16, 8 assists, and 8 rebounds. Kristaps Porzingis got a chance to get back out there, and Sam Hauser played very well too. And so I think that with them, they might have to have some of these role players kind of step up, especially with what's going on with Jaylen Brown. I'm not sure that he's going to be necessarily 100% going into this thing, and that's something that the Celtics are going to have to think about. And so next up, you got the Washington Wizards versus the Chicago Bulls. And so, look, the Bulls win 119, to 89 in this game. We'll be talking about how they secured the 9th seed now, so they're guaranteed a play-in game Wednesday. And I think that for the Bulls, for them, it was about their younger players. And so especially when you look at a player like Modest Mazelis, who I think has been he might have been the steal really in this last SWBA draft. 20 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists in this game. I think that he's the only rookie for the Chicago Bulls to have 90-plus points and 70-plus blocks in a season. So Modest Mazelis doing it on the offensive end and the defensive end as well. And then with Julian Phillips, a player that the Bulls have been trying to wonder about as far as being a rotational piece. He had to step in and start in this game, had a career night, 23 points and 9 rebounds there. With the Wizards, look, it's all about the younger players, and it's all about them really trending towards this upcoming SWBA draft. And so I will give them a lot of credit there. They're playing them, and I like what I saw from Bub Carrington. He had 18 points and 11 assists in this game. He's a player that I think is going to be really good in this league. And so next up, we got the Toronto Raptors versus the Dallas Mavericks as the Mavs win 124 to 102. And I think really the key takeaway out of this is that Anthony Davis had a very good game. You see Anthony Davis really come in and with the triple-double, 23 points, 10 assists, 13 rebounds in 30 minutes. And so that's good. I think that he's really been trying to probably get his legs back underneath him since he's been out. PJ Washington, I think he's probably been the most consistent here. Derek Lively trending towards trying to get his rhythm back. He had a double-double in this one. And I like the fact that they had some good contributions from Max Christie. I think that he's probably been an underrated player in that trade. At times he's looked very good. At times he hasn't looked very good. So he had 17 and 6 there. And so um, I'm not sure about the Mavs because the Mavs, I don't think that they're necessarily going to make some noise, but I don't necessarily see them being an easy out either. And so we'll be talking about them as the SWBA playoffs start. But an interesting win, I think, and so a good one for the Mavs. And so next up, we got the Memphis Grizzlies and the Denver Nuggets. And so 117 to 109, the Nuggets win this game. And I think that really the key takeaway out of this is that you got Nikola Jokic making history in this because he got another triple double. He had 26 points, 13 assists, 16 rebounds. I believe he's the only center that has averaged a triple double for a season, if I'm not mistaken, there. And then also, two, he's the fourth player in the SWBA to average a triple double on the season. And so that just lets you know how much of an impact that Nikola Jokic is, which is why I have put him up there in the top two players right now in this league because of the things that he can do on a nightly basis. It's incredible. And so I think that he's really kind of lifted this team. And if this team is going to do anything, it starts with him. And so they did get Jamal Murray back, which was huge. I think he looked pretty good considering that he's been out with a hamstring. Not sure how much they can trust it, but we'll see how things go. 15 points, 7 assists in this one. And he also had 5 rebounds. And so they're going to need a playoff Jamal Murray if they're going to make a deep run. Russell Westbrook had 14 in this one as well. And with the Grizzlies, look, you had Ja Morant with 21, 6 assists. And then you have Jaren Jackson with 18 points in this, 2 assists and 1 rebounds. And I think that with the Memphis Grizzlies, like the biggest story for them and just the biggest thing I think to come out of this and why you wonder about them is just they have not beat a winning team like a record, like a team with a winning record in 2 months. And so that's why the Memphis Grizzlies are a team that I don't necessarily know if I take them as serious here. And they're in a play-in situation. So they're going to be interesting, much like the Dallas Mavericks in that. I don't think that they're going to be an easy out. But this is a team that has really struggled against winning teams, and they have not won a playoff series in quite some time as well. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And so next up, the next game that we want to talk about here is the Brooklyn Nets versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. And so, look, the Timberwolves take care of business 117 to 91. And I think probably the first major key takeaway out of this was that Anthony Edwards had got a technical foul. And initially, it looked like Anthony Edwards was going to have to sit out Sunday. But, now with the time of this recording, it looks like that the NBA or the SWBA, excuse me, went ahead and they rescinded that technical. So you will see Anthony Edwards out there Sunday. All right. And so I think that that was the first major key takeaway out of that. Now, on top of that, as far as the game was concerned, he didn't necessarily have a great game. In fact, he had a not so good game. He had 9 points. He had 5 assists in this one, 4 rebounds, really never got too much into a rhythm. And then, I think that this team was really carried by Rudy Gobert. I think that he was terrific. 35 points and 11 rebounds. Like this was the game for Rudy. And so that ultimately I think is what carried them past the Brooklyn Nets. And, to be clear, look, the Brooklyn Nets are another one of these teams that they are looking forward to this upcoming SWBA draft. I mean, they rested a lot of players. We've been talking about Drew Timme, who had another double-double, which honestly, I think that they probably found something with him. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with him next season because I wanted to see how his game translated from Gonzaga. And so I'm very impressed with what I saw from him. And so next up, the next couple games here. We got the Golden State Warriors versus the Portland Trailblazers. And so you see that the Golden State Warriors take care of business 103 to 86. And so the key takeaway out of this is that the Warriors really, they're in an interesting situation because now going into Sunday, this is a win or you're into the play-in situation. And I think that the Golden State Warriors definitely want to win a game to be in the playoffs and get the added rest. And I think that the kicker to that is if you watch this game, Steph Curry, he hurt his thumb. Okay. And this is the same thumb that he's been dealing with. I think earlier in the year, before they made the Jimmy Butler trade, I was kind of looking at, just some reports and talking about him. He's been dealing with this hand injury along with a knee injury as well. And so with that, you definitely want to get the added rest for Steph Curry. He did come back to the game with the thumb wrapped. He did score 14 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds. The thumb injury is on his shooting hand, by the way. And so Jimmy Butler, 24 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds. So taking care of business here in Portland. We'll be talking a little bit more about just the standings, positionings, and everything like that here in a moment. And so next up, you got the Los Angeles Clippers and the Kings. And so, look, this one came down to the last possession of the game. And really, ultimately speaking, it was almost a situation where James Harden, who I believe had 5 turnovers in this game, the 5th one almost cost them. They had a chance to win the game. And I'm talking about the Sacramento Kings. DeMar DeRozan misses. But bottom line, look, Kawhi Leonard looks like the Kawhi Leonard that has been an MVP in this league. He's looked like just the champion that we've saw before in the past, because in this game, look, he had 28 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and he played 42 minutes. That is huge because Kawhi Leonard, we know that when he's healthy and he can play this amount of minutes, he can certainly change the course of a basketball game, and he can really change the course of a team. And then with James Harden, look, James Harden has looked a lot like the MVP type of James Harden. He's been playing free. He's been playing loose, 23 points, 10 assists, 11 rebounds. He's starting to look a lot like he did in those Houston days out there. And I love the supporting cast that the Los Angeles Clippers have. So the Kings, we've saw this movie before, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and I just wonder, how much noise they're going to make in a play-in situation. In this particular game, you did see, again, a good close from DeMar DeRozan. I think Zach LaVine closed as well pretty well. 26 points for him, 16 for DeMar DeRozan. Both of those guys playing 40-plus minutes. You had Zach LaVine 41, and then DeMar DeRozan playing 40. And so it's tough. I mean, because they play kind of a slow down, kind of grinded out type of style. And it's going to be interesting as the play-in situation kind of takes off here. And so next up, we got the Sacramento Kings, or excuse me, not the Sacramento Kings. You got the San Antonio Spurs versus the Phoenix Suns here. And so, look, in this particular game, you have the Suns beating the Spurs. And so they finally get a win after just really struggling without Kevin Durant. And I think that, it's been a disappointing season for the Suns. And I think the biggest storyline here is just what direction are the Suns going to go after this season? Because I think that certainly maybe something's going to have to be done with the Kevin Durant situation. Bradley Beal, look, he has a no trade clause. And so I think that that's very interesting. He scored 21 in this one. I think Devin Booker is certainly a guy that you keep. But look, the Suns have a lot of questions to really answer about their roster. And with the San Antonio Spurs, look, it's all about the younger players. And I think that for them, they're trending in the right direction, especially with Stephon Castle. I think he's going to be really the SWBA Rookie of the Year. He had 16 points and 10 assists in this game. And I just think that they're trending in the right direction. You got Wemby coming back. I think that, they'll probably make some more decisions with this roster. You got De'Aaron Fox coming back as well. He's going to be in his prime. Like, this is going to be a scary team down the stretch. And so lastly, we got the Lakers versus the Rockets. And so you see that the Lakers win the game 140-109, but did they really lose the game? Because I think really the story of this game for the Lakers is just that LeBron James went out due to a growing injury, did not return back to the game. He had 14 points, 8 assists, and then also 4 rebounds in this game. And so I think that that's going to be interesting. They did secure a seed. We'll be talking about that in the standings here in a moment. But I think that that certainly could impact their chances moving forward. And then, I like the fact that Luka's been rolling. He had 39, 8 assists in this one, or 7 assists, 8 rebounds. And then you had Austin Reeves, who, I was wondering, would his game take a hit with those two players? But it looks like that he's taken a step forward as a player, which is huge for them because they're going to need that, especially with the front line that they have there. That really, I think, is going to be an issue for this team because they don't necessarily have the bigs. And so that means that Austin Reeves is going to have to step up even more offensively and defensively out there. Very crafty player. He had 23 points in this, 6 assists, and 7 rebounds. So doing a lot of different things. And so it's going to be interesting what is going to happen to the Lakers. And for the Rockets, look, they do take the loss, but they did play their younger players in this one. Jalen Green, he did play. And once again, we've talked about this before. I mean, he only played 15 minutes, but he had 7 points. I think that his floor just cannot be that low. But again, it was 15 minutes. I get it, but just in the playoff series, that can't happen. And then I love the fact that they played Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore, I think a guy out of Villanova. I've definitely liked his game. I want to see him get more minutes with the Rockets at some point. If not with the Rockets, somebody else, because I think that this guy has a ton of just upside. 34 points in this one, 8 rebounds, and an assist. I think that this guy can be a legit two-way player at some point. And shout out to Reed Sheppard, like coming in, 14 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds. I think at some point, if they go a different direction from Van Fleet, I think he's certainly set to step up and really be a good player here. And so, with that being said, look, that was a long scoreboard. I know it. There was a lot of games, and it's going to be a long scoreboard tomorrow because we have everybody playing in the SWBA tomorrow, and there's a lot on the lines, which leads us to the standings here. And starting with the Eastern Conference here. And so move this out of the way now. And so we talked about the Chicago Bulls. They're locked in at ninth, okay? And so they're going to have a play-in game against the Miami Heat, if I'm not mistaken, there, and that's going to be Wednesday. And then when you look at the top of the conference, and so the Knicks, they are locked in at 3. You got the Pacers. They're also locked in at 4. And then you have now the Milwaukee Bucks. They are for sure locked in at 5. And then you have the Pistons. They locked in at 6 for sure. And so what that means is that now at the top here, you're going to have the Knicks taking on the Pacers. And so the significance of that is yesterday I said that the Pacers were a team in the Eastern Conference that nobody wants to see because of the mix of veterans and then also to the younger players that they have and the way that Cade Cunningham has played. Now, the Knicks have struggled against the top tier teams. I mean, they just don't have winning records against teams that have the elite records, and that scares you with the Knicks. Not only that, when you look at the season series against the Detroit Pistons, the Pistons lead the series 3-1, okay? So they lead 3-1 versus the Knicks. The last time that they played in a playoffs was 1992. The Knicks won that, all right? Now, these are two different teams now because you had Hall of Famers on both sides of the ball, but still, and not saying that you won't have future Hall of Famers in this game, but I just think that when you look at the Pistons, you look at the way that they're trending, the way that they've been playing basketball over the last month, I don't know if the Knicks want to see that, man. And so we'll see what happens there. And then next, when you look at Milwaukee and the Pacers, look, I've been talking about the Pacers. They've been trending in the right direction. They're looking like a team that they were there last year, right? It was a team that was like knocking on the door last year. And I think that they've got that same mojo now. But this Milwaukee team has been tough as well. And so the significance here is that Milwaukee, they lead the season series 3-1, okay? But there's no Dame Lillard at this point. I think that maybe there's a chance he could return. We'll probably be talking about that a little bit more as the playoffs approach. But he hasn't been ruled out. And so 3-1 as far as leading that series. And as far as the all-time is concerned, the Pacers lead that 3-0. And so that's going to be interesting there. And I think that you got different types of things going on because you got championship, just stuff going on in both players. You got Giannis, you got Bobby Portis Jr., you got Doc Rivers. Like they have all been to the championships and have won it, right? And then you got Rick Carlisle on the other side of the ball. He's been to the championship. You got Pascal Siakam. He's been there as well. And so it's just like, I want to see from the experience standpoint, which team is really going to kind of stand out in that series. And so again, we'll be talking about that a little bit more. But initially, my thoughts are, you got some people who have been to the championship, they've won it at the high level. Is that going to kind of tip the scale? And so we'll be talking about that. And so next, let's go ahead and jump into the Western Conference here and taking a look here at that. And so when we look at the West, I think that the significance is that, for one, we were wondering, okay, would the Lakers secure the 3 seed? They did. However, it might have come at a cost because LeBron James, again, he's dealing now with that groin injury. He didn't return back. We don't have any updates at the time of this recording, but that could be huge. And so with the Nuggets, I think it was important that they got the win. And I also think it's important, too, that they got Jamal Murray back at this time. And I really do believe that they need to hold on and they need to get out of the play-in situation. I think that they definitely need to do that. With the Clippers and the Warriors, it's going to be interesting. And going to what Steph Curry said, I feel like it is going to be kind of a game 7 type of vibe there because, look, if you win that game, you're into the playoffs, and you can take the little bit of rest and get ready for that round 1. If not, you're going to be in a play-in situation, and the Warriors have not necessarily been successful in those situations. And we just talked about Steph Curry being banged up with the right thumb, and also, too, I think he's been dealing with a little bit of a knee. And so this is a Warriors team that very much needs to get it done tomorrow. And so I think that that's going to be an interesting game with the Timberwolves and the Grizzlies. And so we just talked about the Grizzlies. We've talked about the fact that the wins that they've had, not necessarily quality wins. So even though they've been getting some good elite play from like John Morant and then Jaren Jackson Jr. and guys like that, but then you don't have Brandon Clark anymore. He's down with another season-ending injury. And then you're going to have to rely a little bit more on some younger players. You don't have the coach anymore. So I just think that situation is kind of a little bit of a mess there, kind of trending into this. But again, I think between the Timberwolves, the Grizzlies, they're like a tough out because they're kind of still, they're like similar teams. They're young enough and, it's kind of like they don't know enough, but they do have some experience. And so it's an interesting feel because you don't know which type of team is going to show up out there between those two. And so with the Kings and the Mavs, look, I've said this before with the Kings, we continue to keep seeing that same movie. With the Mavs, look, I just don't know that they have enough to really withstand what has happened this season. With moving on from Luka, you lose Kyrie, and then you also have to deal with Anthony Davis and just, what type of Anthony Davis you're going to get. Are you going to get an Anthony Davis that's going to be a triple-double threat? I mean, if you do, he could carry a team really. And so you just don't know what's going to happen with the others with the Mavs. And so because of that, that's why I kind of count them out here moving forward into the SWBA playoffs. And so, with that being said, that leads us to the last section of the show. And it's talking about the SWBA team that really nobody wants to see. And so I think that this goes back to a team that we've already talked about. We already know that this was coming. And I think it starts with the Golden State Warriors. I think that this is a team that nobody wants to see. And I think that one of the reasons why nobody wants to see this team is because when you get playoff Jimmy Butler, and never mind playoff Jimmy Butler, when you get Jimmy Butler on that team, their free throws have gone up, which has been huge. And I think it's been something that's been really underrated because we know what type of pace the Warriors want to play with. But now when you get to the playoffs and the game slows down, you have the ability to now get to the free throw line. And I think that Jimmy Butler gives them an added plus because you get fouled, you have the chance to make two, and then you can reset your defense. And so that means that takes away the opposing team's transition game. And, for a team that's a little bit older right now, but still can defend, I think, at a high level with Jimmy Butler and then also to Draymond and some other young pieces that they have, that's an added bonus. It's almost like getting an added rest during the game. And so I think that really favors really Golden State and what they like to do. And then I think that, too, the next thing, just how dynamic the offense is. I think that, look, it's not the same feel as when they had Klay Thompson at an elite level, but this is an added level of just to the dynamic offense that they have, that it's a different wrinkle because you can go to a half court set and you can get it to Jimmy Butler, who can just go out, post up. He can get a score that way. He's a mid-range maestro, right? And then I think now you add the dimension of him understanding what's going on with the concepts of the split cuts, and then also too the backdoor actions and things like that that goes on with the Golden State Warriors. A lot of the player movement and things like that. Like he's definitely got that too. And so that's where that added dynamic, aspect of their offense, I think, just kind of takes off. And so that is another reason why I think that this is one of those teams you don't want to see. And then defensively, just looking at that, getting away from just what they can do, just scoring the basketball, and that's not even talking about what Steph's going to do to you. But defensively, now with Jimmy Butler, you probably have still, I think, an elite perimeter defender, which helps them out a lot. I think that probably what's going to be an added bonus for them is what happens to Gary Payton II. Because if he's able to come back and he's able to be just really, solid after having the torn ligament in his thumb, and then also too dealing with the fracture, I think, in his nose, instantly your perimeter defense gets that much more better. I think that Jonathan Kuminga has gotten better as a defender, and I think he's going to definitely help them with some added size and things like that. So the perimeter defense, it gets a lot better for them. And then, you take a lot more pressure off of Draymond Green to be a little bit more of a quarterback on the back line, which means that now with Kayvon Looney, he can slide in and kind of get into his championship role at this point in the year, which is concentrate on getting these rebounds and just being a guy that can clean up stuff. I think that they've found an added bonus with Quentin Post. Want to see a little bit more of what he can do defensively. But I do think that if Steve Kerr has to go to a little bit of a zone action, not saying that Golden State would do this, but if they do, I feel like you can hide, some of those good defenders on the back line too as well. So that adds a little bit of the dimension, I think, to Golden State and their championship aspirations. And so this is why I think this is a team you don't want to see. Team that's been there, team that's added, team that can get you at the free throw line, the half court game, a team that actually can surprise you defensively. So anyway, long show. Let me know what you guys are thinking about all of this here. Let me know, do you think that Golden State is for sure the team that you do not want to see in the Western Conference? I'd love to hear your thoughts there. And then also, too, what are the key takeaways, from the SWBA scoreboard in the games that took place there yesterday? And then let me know what you guys are thinking with the standings in the Eastern and the Western Conference. Remember, we're talking about the Pacers, who I think, they're going to be interesting along with those Detroit Pistons. All right. So as we always say, see the game, be the game. I'll see you guys on the next one. All right. Peace.